This is live from New Delhi. You're watching DT India News Hour. I'm Sakal Bhatt, and DT India News Hour is India's voice to the world. Coming up in the next hour. US election heats up. Kamala Harris leads Donald Trump in new poll projection after Biden's dropout. Her donations top up to $100 million. UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy meets India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, reiterates extraordinary contribution of British Indians in UK society. Minister Jaishankar says India and the UK need to work together on global issues. Kenyan President William Ruto names 4 members of main opposition party to a new cabinet after protests. Demonstrations continue despite Ruto abandoning $2.7 billion finance bill, $2.7 billion finance bill. And 18 dead as a plane crashes during takeoff at Kathmandu airport in Nepal. Aircraft slips off the runway while leaving for Pokhara. With President Joe Biden out of the running, Vice President Kamala Harris is vying for top place of the Democrats' 2024 election ticket, adding another twist to the poll pulse in America. Once Biden's running mate, U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris is now looking out for her running mate as well, and also upping the ante against Republican candidate Donald Trump. She has called these elections a choice between freedom and chaos. And interestingly, opinion polls by Reuters and Ipsos has projected Harris taking a marginal lead over Republican candidate Donald Trump. Fuzail Ahmed of DD India gets us more.
It was the first campaign rally in Milwaukee in Wisconsin by U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris after she replaced President Joe Biden as the Democratic presidential candidate. Harris went on the offensive against Donald Trump, saying she knew Donald Trump's type.
Before I was elected vice president, before I was elected United States Senator, I was elected Attorney General of the state of California, and I was a courtroom prosecutor before then. And in those roles, I took on perpetrators of all kinds. Predators who abused women, fraudsters who ripped off consumers, cheaters who broke the rules for their own gain. So hear me when I say, I know Donald Trump's type.
On the other hand, the Republican presidential nominee, Donald Trump, attacked her record and dubbed her Lion Kamala. On his Truth Social platform, Trump wrote, "Lion Kamala destroys everything she touches." Trump will hold his first campaign rally since Harris emerged as his near-certain Democratic foe in the 2024 election. The former president will appear at an event in Charlotte, North Carolina. The U.S. election has generated interest in other countries as well. On Wednesday, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz said he believed it was very possible Kamala Harris would win the U.S. election.
Es sind die amerikanischen Bürgerinnen und Bürger.
The election campaign in the USA will certainly be exciting now with a slightly new lineup and a new constellation. I want to say very clearly that it is impossible for any one of us here in Germany to predict the election outcome. I think it is very possible that Kamala Harris will win the election, but the American voters will decide.
While Russian Foreign Ministry said on Wednesday that the upheaval surrounding the U.S. election, including an assassination attempt against Donald Trump and the exit of President Joe Biden from the race, showed the divisions in an American society in danger of falling into a nosedive. While according to a White House statement, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who is visiting the United States, will meet U.S. President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris separately on Thursday. In India, villagers in Kamala Harris's ancestral village of Tulasentirapuram in Tamil Nadu were brimming with excitement.
Vice President Kamala Harris is from our village and will be nominated in the US presidential race. We are very happy and confident for her victory. We wish her the best and hope that the relationship between both the countries improves.
As the first black woman and Asian American to serve as Vice President, Kamala Harris would make further history if elected the first woman president of the United States. Bureau Report, DD India.
DD India's Jagrati Dave joins us live from Washington, D.C. Jagrati, hi. This is getting now very intense. Bring us up to speed as far as Democrat camp is concerned. We've seen how Kamala Harris has appeared to kind of quickly gained the support necessary to become the party's official presidential candidate. But the question now also shifts on to who is she going to pick as an election running mate.
Yes, indeed it does. You've had a lot of top Democrats speaking out, saying that they endorse her. Obviously, the current president, Joe Biden, was the first to do so. You've had people like Chuck Schumer in the Senate. He, a senior Democrat, who has also come out saying that he gives his backing to Kamala Harris. And so I think, the Democratic leadership is really backing her, trying to project a sense of unity to really get behind this new candidate who's really part of the existing ticket, but just now at the top. In terms of the voters, you've got a recent Morning Consult poll that was conducted after President Biden dropped out that says that 65% of Democratic voters support Kamala Harris to lead. And you've got another recent PBS NPR Marist poll which is saying that 87% of all Americans think it was a good idea for Joe Biden to drop out. So there's clearly been some sort of change in the mind of the electorate of the repositioning at the top of the Democratic ticket. But I think in the weeks to come, it's really a case of how Kamala Harris is introduced to voters to see if there is more of a shift in the polling. As you mentioned, recent polls suggest that she's edging it in front of Donald Trump. Other polls are showing them neck and neck. And obviously there's different pictures across the country. So I think that's something to really look at very closely.
All right. And the larger question, whether she's going to be able to maintain the momentum of this edge going forward. But is there a renewed sense of Democratic presidential enthusiasm in their camp? Her ratings are ahead, her donations are swelling up. The question is also about, is this going to be constant or consistent enough?
That is the question. In that time, 24 hours after the Biden announcement, she raised $81 million, which is the largest amount raised in this election cycle in a 24-hour period.
Okay.
And you've got Democrats on the ground, some in swing states, saying that there is more enthusiasm to vote among Democrats now that Harris is at the top of the ticket. But you've also got strategists who are saying that actually local Democrats will be running local campaigns based on their House or Senate areas, districts, rather than looking to run a campaign based on the top of the ticket, because the local candidates, the senators, the House representatives were outperforming Joe Biden. And there's a sense that that might still continue in those tightly run seats with Kamala Harris at the top. But if she continues to make herself known to voters, if she improves on her performance in the last time she ran for office as a presidential candidate, where she wasn't really able to articulate her policies, given the experience that she's had as vice president, if she can improve on that, she might be able to turn things around and continue some of the enthusiasm that Democrats are saying they're seeing on the ground at this stage.
Yes. How do you see the campaign now, the way it's turning really vitriolic, the kind of attacks that are coming from Kamala Harris and the counters coming from Donald Trump? Is there a sense of reset going forward? Campaign getting very intense?
Well, I think following the assassination attempt on Donald Trump, everyone was talking about unity and calls for unity. But, the Republican nominee really sort of undermined those calls that he himself had made with the ongoing attacks on the Democrats. And, Kamala Harris, as you mentioned in your lead there, has been framing this campaign as a fight between a prosecutor and a
Yes.
convicted felon. So
Yes.
I think the attempts at unity are probably going to be dropping by the wayside as the campaign in the short weeks and months remaining to November really gets underway, with that sprint to the finish line, with both sides recognizing that they really need to go on the attack to try to win what appears to be a tight contest.
Right, we'll leave it there. Many thanks, Jagruti Dave, for joining us live from DC and putting the story in perspective. Thank you. Shifting focus to Kenya, where Kenyan President William Ruto on Wednesday nominated 4 members of the main opposition party to a new broad-based cabinet, and that he promised in response to nationwide protests. The opposition members, including the pick to lead the finance ministry, John Mbadi Noguongo, are allies of the opposition leader Raila Odinga, whom Ruto defeated in 2022 polls. Kenyan President William Ruto said he would be proposing amendments to anti-corruption and public procurement laws. Well, earlier on Tuesday,
proposing amendments to the Evidence Act and the Criminal Procedure Code, among other necessary legislative amendments to all statutes relating to corruption, to expedite investigations and prosecution of corruption and economic crimes cases, and provide for their conclusion within 6 months.
Earlier on Tuesday, Kenya's police fired tear gas to prevent scuffles between groups of protesters and government supporters in the capital, Nairobi, as youth-led demonstrations against alleged corruption and misgovernance dragged into their 6th week. Protests, which began in opposition to tax hikes and climaxed in the storming of Parliament, have continued despite President William Ruto abandoning whopping $2.7 billion finance bill in June. And at the time, he also fired almost all of his cabinet, although he retained many holdovers from the prior administration when he named part of his new lineup last Friday. DD India's Leon Sinyage has sent this report from Kampala.
President Ruto has nominated 10 people to form his new cabinet. These include 4 members of the opposition. The officials will take up positions in the Treasury, Energy, Mining and Cooperatives ministries. The latest nominees form part of a list of 11 named last week. The nominations must be approved by Parliament. President Ruto's decision to make changes and back down from a proposed tax hikes of $2.7 billion was prompted by demonstrations led by young Kenyans demanding for reforms in his government. The protests that started in June have seen more than 50 people lose their lives. Leon Senyange reporting from Kampala, Uganda for DD India.
And still to come on DD India News Hour, coming up next. After violent clashes, Bangladesh witnesses relative calm, people out in capital Dhaka on Wednesday. Indian Parliament witnesses stormy scenes during the debate on Budget 2024. And Ukraine's foreign minister on first visit in China since Russian attack.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Sakal Bhatt. Let's move on now. Ukraine's Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba is in China till Thursday. On Tuesday, he met with China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi and discussed about ways to achieve a fair peace in the war with Russia. Kuleba's visit is the first by high-ranking Ukrainian official since Russia's full-scale war since February 2022 invasion, and China, the world's second largest economy, has not publicly yet condemned Russia for it. And DD India's Megumi Lim joins us from Kyiv with more updates on Ukraine ministers visiting China. The timings of it is very interesting, considering Kuleba's visit marks the first very high-profile visit of a Ukrainian official on that land.
That's right. The timing is indeed quite important and also very crucial for Ukraine right now. President Zelensky is planning a second peace summit and is trying to shore up more support for that. But indeed, this is maybe the most progress we have seen in a long time in terms of Russia and Ukraine talking about possibly coming to the negotiating table. Today, the Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba said in a statement that Kyiv was ready for talks with Moscow if Russia was willing to act in good faith. He did say that he was skeptical that Moscow would be able to act in good faith in any peace talks so far, but the Kremlin did respond to Kuleba's statement regarding the possibility of peace talks, saying that the Kremlin's the message from Kuleba is in unison with the Kremlin's position. Now, we do have to understand that both sides still hold very different views with regards to how the war should end. President Putin has in the past proposed a ceasefire before an end to the war, but under the conditions that Ukraine ceded territory to Russia, and also that Ukraine abandons its NATO ambitions. These are things that Kyiv has clearly said it is not willing to do. But with a possible Trump presidency on the horizon, which means a vital U.S. military aid could be cut off to Ukraine, and also with Russia suffering heavy losses every day on the front lines, there is a growing incentive for both sides to try to come to the negotiating table at some point.
Okay, interesting. There seems to be some scope for both the sides to come to a negotiating table, which right now, as the way things go, could be moderated by China. Is there a conversation happening somewhere that China could assume the role of a mediator? They're talking peace, because this is interesting. China hasn't publicly condemned Russia for it so far, and you have the Ukrainian big minister there.
That's right. You're right in that China has not condemned the Russian invasion of Ukraine. It has also not used the term invasion or war to describe what is happening in Ukraine. It has called it a crisis and a conflict. And China has positioned itself to be neutral in this war. But as we remember, more than 2 years ago, it declared a no-limits partnership with Russia days before the Russian invasion of Ukraine. But at the same time, China has economic ties and has held economic ties with Ukraine. It is in a very difficult position, and it has tried to offer ways to mediate in trying to achieve peace between two countries, but it didn't attend the peace summit, which was held in Switzerland last month, because Russia was not present. It instead proposed a 6-point peace plan together with Brazil, which said that at some point, Ukraine and Russia should hold an international peace conference, but it has not taken any active steps in actually realizing that. So we have yet to see how China may play an more active role in these talks and mediations.
Yes, as China's role is pretty much under scanner, Megumi, one final question from, what are the kind of reactions we're getting across Europe? It's going to be interesting how the other European partners are going to interpret this visit.
That's right. I think Europe is watching closely.
Yes.
China, as I said earlier, has appeared to forge closer ties with Russia over the past few years. And so this is something that Europe is very cautious about. But Ukraine also understands that China holds a lot of influence over Russia, and that Ukraine is wanting China to play a more active role in mediating and also helping to bring an end to this war. This is the very reason why Kuleba, the foreign minister of Ukraine, is in China this week. He's trying to find common ground between Ukraine and China in terms of how they want to pursue peace. So far, as I mentioned earlier, China has not seen eye to eye with Ukraine by, for example, not attending the peace summit that was hosted by Switzerland and organized by President Zelensky. But President Zelensky is trying to plan for a second peace summit before the end of this year, and he really wants China to be present. But as I said earlier, China is in a very complicated position
Yes.
with its close ties to Russia. So indeed, a lot of European countries will be paying close attention to China's role in the future.
Yeah, we'll have to see how this really concludes. But Megumi, many thanks for joining us live from Kyiv. Thank you. Moving on to some other big stories, Britain's Foreign Secretary David Lammy has arrived in India in his first official visit since the assumption of office. On Wednesday, he met with India's External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar. Dr. Jaishankar said that it's also important that India and the UK work together on global issues and in global platforms. Foreign Secretary David Lammy and India's External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar will be also attending ASEAN Foreign Ministers meeting in Laos. Akshay Dongre of India, DD India gets us more.
UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy arrived in New Delhi on Wednesday for a two-day visit to India. This is the first high-level discussion between the two countries after Keir Starmer's Labour government came to power in the general elections in the United Kingdom. India's External Affairs Ministry took to social media to welcome the arrival of the Foreign Secretary, stating, "Warm welcome to UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy as he arrives in New Delhi on his first official visit since the assumption of office. The visit will strengthen the comprehensive strategic partnership between the two countries and will make the living bridge between India and the UK stronger." The UK government, in a statement, claimed that economic, domestic and global security will be at the heart of the Foreign Secretary's visit to India. Before his arrival in India, David Lammy highlighted the importance of India in UK's foreign policy. Quote, "India is the emerging superpower of the 21st century, the largest country in the world with 1.4 billion people and one of the fastest growing economies in the world." Unquote. The Foreign Secretary also met with India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar for a bilateral discussion reiterating the extraordinary contribution of British Indians in UK's society, and talks also featured the long-pending India-UK Free Trade Agreement.
I do believe that, our relationship, it is a very important relationship, but there are enormous possibilities there. And how we explore those possibilities, how do we realize our potential in a more meaningful way is one of the tasks that I look forward to undertaking with you. We are both countries which have a big global presence in different ways. So I think it's also important that India and the UK work together on global issues.
After the two-day visit to India, both UK Foreign Secretary and India's External Affairs Minister will be leaving for the ASEAN Foreign Ministers meeting in Laos. Vientiane, Laos's bustling capital city, is set to host top diplomats from the Southeast Asian bloc, ASEAN, as well as the world's biggest powers at gatherings between July 25 and July 27. The Southeast Asian bloc, ASEAN, met in Laos on Wednesday as it seeks to advance a stalled bid to resolve a crisis in Myanmar and cool tensions in the South China Sea. The meeting of the foreign ministers from the Association of Southeast Asian Nations will be followed by two summits in Laos on Saturday, set to address key global issues that will be attended by officials from the United States, European Union, Japan, China, Russia and more. Bureau Report, DD India.
In India's immediate neighborhood, Nepal, at least 18 people, mostly Nepali nationals, were killed after a plane crashed and caught fire immediately after taking off from Nepal's capital, Kathmandu. Pilot, the lone survivor reportedly, is receiving treatment in hospital. 19 people were on board the ill-fated Saurya Airlines flight, including technical staff. Nepal has formed a 5-member probe committee headed by Ratish Chandra Lal Suman, former Director General of Civil Aviation Authority of Nepal, to go into the causes of the crash. DD India correspondent Shweta Singh guesses us more.
18 people were killed after a regional passenger plane belonging to Nepal's Saurya Airlines crashed and caught fire while taking off from the capital Kathmandu on Wednesday. The Saurya Airlines aircraft was on its way from Kathmandu to Pokhara.
We first assumed it to be a vehicle accident. I rushed near to the site, and after going there we realized that the plane had crashed. Police officials were there and burnt wreckage was seen everywhere around.
Nepal's Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli and Home Minister Ramesh Lekhak reached the airport. This is not for the first time that the crash happened in Nepal. Before Wednesday's crash, nearly 360 people were killed in the country in 19 air crashes since the year 2000. July 11, 2023, 6 people were killed in a helicopter crash in central Nepal. January 15, 2023, a twin-engine ATR-72 aircraft carrying 72 people crashed in Pokhara. May 29, 2022. 16 Nepalese, 4 Indians and 2 Germans died on a de Havilland Canada DHC 6300 twin-otter aircraft. February 27, 2019. A helicopter crashed in bad weather in eastern Nepal, killing all 7 people on board, including the tourism minister. March 12, 2018. 51 of 71 people on a Bangladeshi airliner operated by US Bangla Airlines died when it crashed in cloudy weather. February 26, 2016. 2 people were dead after a small plane crashed in western Nepal's Kalikot district. February 24, 2016. A small plane crashed in bad weather, killing all 23 people on board. February 16, 2014. All 18 people on a small plane that crashed in bad weather were killed. September 28, 2012. A small propeller-driven Dornier aircraft struck a bird and crashed shortly after takeoff from Kathmandu. September 25, 2011. A small plane carrying foreign tourists to view the Mount Everest crashed in bad weather near Kathmandu, killing all 19 people on board. December 16, 2010. A small plane crashed in the Himalayan foothills of remote East Nepal, killing all 22 people on board. Located in the heart of the Kathmandu Valley, the country's main airport is ringed by mountains, affecting wind directions and intensity in the area, making takeoff and landing a challenge for pilots. With Bureau Inputs, Shweta Singh's report, DD India, Kathmandu.
India's premier Defence Research and Development Organisation, or DRDO, has successfully flight tested Phase 2 ballistic missile defence system. The target missile was launched from LC-4 Dhamra at 16:20 hours, mimicking adversary ballistic missile, which was detected by weapon system radars deployed on land and sea and activated the AD interceptor system. The performance of the missile was monitored from the flight data captured by range trafficking instruments like electro-optical systems, radar and telemetry stations deployed by Integrated Test Range Chandipur at various locations, including on-board ship. India's Defence Minister has congratulated DRDO for today's successful flight test of Phase 2 ballistic missile defence system and stated that the test has again demonstrated our ballistic or India's ballistic missile defence capabilities. In stark contrast to days of violent clashes in neighbouring Bangladesh, it has experienced relative calm on Wednesday following the end of the national holiday and the government's relaxation of the curfew imposed to quell the violence since last Friday night. All the public and private establishments, including garment factories, banks and stock exchanges, have been reopened and employees and workers have joined their respective works. Reportedly, people were out on the streets in the capital Dhaka. Telecommunication services were partially restored, although internet connection was slow and social media remained suspended. Trade-related activities resumed at the Bangladesh border on Wednesday. Truck drivers from neighboring countries of Bhutan and Nepal said that the reopening of the border was a relief for them, as the closure had led to a lot of losses. And still to come on DD India News Hour, this is what we have for you. US election campaign becomes more interesting after Vice President Kamala Harris joins the race. Ohio-based political analyst joins us live after the short break to give us more perspective. An Indian Council of Medical Research team is assessing the Nipah virus situation in the southern state of Kerala following the death of a boy due to the virus.
We simply throw things away when we're done using them, be it a cup, an old shirt, or a used battery. But we can do a lot better. Let's find out how.
I thought I can get a bunch of people together and we can just create this beautiful product while not being wasteful, while paying people correctly, while not throwing things into the garbage can.
Our goal is to recover 95% of our nickel, which is the most expensive, most valuable ore, including aluminum and copper, of course.
We are successfully managing waste in this small town with a limited number of people, resources, and market. If we can do that here, it would definitely be possible in larger towns that have many advantages over us.
We just don't bring you the news as it unfolds. We get to the heart of the matter.
We don't just present facts, we demystify complex social, political and economic events.
We break stories that shape the world's
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Sakal Bhatt, and let's go back to our top story on the US polls. As of now, Kamala Harris is leading Donald Trump in new poll projection after Biden's dropout. In fact, her donations are also swelling, topping reportedly $100 million. We try and understand what next in these US elections, and has Kamala Harris got what it really takes to beat Donald Trump? A switch from a prosecutor to a possible president of United States of America. Who could be Kamala Harris's running mate? That is also the next big question, wide open. And what happens in these elections next? We are joined by Anshu Joshi from Center of American Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, and we are very glad to have with us all the way from Ohio in US, Zenia Bahel, professor and political analyst from Cleveland State University, joining us live from Ohio. Thank you very much, Zenia. Coming to you first. So Harris, has Zenia gone on the offensive, it seems, against Donald Trump in the first rally of a White House campaign, portraying these elections as a choice between a former prosecutor and a convicted felon. It seems that this high decibel campaign is only going to turn more vitriolic, the kind of counters that are coming from Trump's campaign or camp. Zenia.
Yes, absolutely. So firstly, I want to talk about, how the election environment in the United States is unprecedented. We haven't seen, such occurrences, or we haven't seen an election such as this one since probably the 1960s, when President Lyndon Johnson, decided that no, I'm not going to accept my party's nomination for another term as the president, with regards to the Vietnam War. So since then, such an event has not happened. And for the very first time, we have somebody of South Asian descent, specifically Indian descent, and a black woman who might, who potentially might become the president of the United States, and she'd be the first such nominee of the Democratic Party if she's given that certificate in the Democratic National Convention, which is set to happen in Chicago,
Yes.
Illinois. Right, so
Yes.
it's an extremely exciting time in American politics. It has been a very interesting debate overall as it pertains to Biden's age and Trump's age, right?
Okay.
But vitriol, go ahead.
Yes, that's the word. In fact, Anshu, coming to you now, the way many would say Harris has been fledging and the campaign has raised staggering $100 million or plus dollars in just 36 hours post President Biden's exit. But the next question is this going to be a constant or consistent lead or race?
Let's see, because nothing can be stated for sure in the US presidential elections, and we have seen that how Biden's one statement has turned the table. Before going into the nut and bolts of the upcoming elections, Sakal, it's very important to look at the overall picture. And we all know that how Trump has officially been declared as the nominee from Republican side in the recently held Republicans National Convention. We are waiting for the same announcement from Democrats side in their convention to be held shortly. After Biden's exit from the elections, definitely the picture has changed when he has already taken Kamala's name as, in his place. And after this announcement, now there are many speculations. So if Kamala gets to be announced as the next nominee by Democrats officially, she is going to create, no doubt, history in the history of United States of America, being the first non-white woman doing so.
Yes.
And she comes with her own advantages, at the same time with apprehensions also, Sakal. So definitely she is the vice president of the country. The nation knows her style of working. She stands on a very firm economic ground, as in she has raised and set a record of raising more than $80 million in, as donations in one day after Biden's exit from the elections.
Yes.
However, and then her rivals have also endorsed her. Look at how Nancy Pelosi has already endorsed her. But then there are apprehensions also, as I said, nation knows her way of working.
Okay.
So there are certain areas wherein, there are exclamation marks, for example, when it comes to the matter of immigrants.
Okay.
And we all know what happened how she dealt with the issue of...
Okay. Anshu, yes. Okay. Basically, her report card and the style of governance, has it been really that popular? Zenia would like to come in here because Zenia, adding to her momentum, we've seen the national poll from Reuters that Anshu also pointed out, showing her with a 2-point lead. 2-point lead, 44% to 42%. But there are, is this a really uphill task for her? Her popularity, her report card as a vice president? Fill in us with some more details.
Yes, now that's a very interesting question, right? Trump has specified that he's ready to debate her. He's ready to debate her on policy specifically, and a lot of his senior Republicans, a lot of his supporters have told him not to pick on her race, not to pick on her being a woman, or not to pick on her nationality, which is of course American, right? But it is something that will be brought to light in this election, and specifically target her on policy. Now, her performance, people credit her for advocating for abortion rights, for women's rights. But there has also been a sense of disappointment under Biden, right? Her performance overall, especially when it comes to economic policy, especially when it comes to foreign policy, right? With her comments on Gaza, with her comments on the war in Gaza, the war in Ukraine. So there has been some disappointment there. But then there is that high expectation from her to bring in reforms related to abortion, even criminal justice reform, given that she's been a public prosecutor and she has had that record of being very harsh on some criminals, but also been criticized for not taking a specific stand. But you talked about vitriol, right, in the very beginning of the conversation, and I want to talk more about that. Let's look at what happened to Obama during his campaign, right? constantly there were questions about where he was born. And those questions have been raised about Harris as well. And she's a woman who has chosen to not have children, right? Which is a growing population of women in the United States. And she is seen as somebody who represents sort of that class of, or that segment of voters, right? And often that's been questioned, like Senator J.D. Vance, who's now Trump's vice presidential pick.
Yes.
He has categorically called her out for that personal, choice of hers, or we don't know what her circumstances were. But at the end of the day, we should, look at this campaign from the perspective of what she's likely to do from a policy standpoint, right? And not question her personal choices. However,
But is that the question on her personal choices, and very quickly, is that really going to play on the psyche of the voters in a long run? I mean, these attacks, this is what campaigns and electioneering and high decibel electioneering is all about. But at the end of the day, what really plays on the minds of the voters? Very quickly, and then I'll come to Anshu.
Yeah, exactly. See, a lot of these things, even if, they are not specifically on the minds of voters, and you have to think about, right, abortion rights, you have to think about gun control. A lot of that has influenced American politics, especially recently, right? We have seen some really conservative states move forward, such as Ohio, my state, move forward with enshrining abortion rights. And Kamala Harris has been rigorously campaigning for abortion rights in the United States, which has become a major political issue, right, to guard women's personal choices.
All right.
And she's been questioned for not having children. So it's rather, it's rather appalling. And it's sad to say
it's a personal choice completely. I mean, we just move ahead from there, and coming to you, Anshu. So, so the bigger question, Kamala Harris, has she got it what it takes to beat Trump? This whole narrative, a shift from a prosecutor to the possible president of United States of America.
As I said, that we should look at the overall picture, Sakal. And there are issues in the country at this point in time, as my co-panelist also shared while witnessing the elections herself. We are looking at these elections being Indians, or for that matter, outsiders. So for us, international relations also matter a lot. How other leaders and nations are looking at this, presidential election. But coming back to the grounds of United States of America, there are a lot of issues to be resolved, ranging from inflation to unemployment to gun lobby to climate change containment and so on, that are affecting the day-to-day lives of a common man sitting there. So they are going to definitely play a vital role while voting. As in when we look at the psyche of people over there.
Right.
When we look at the personalities and ideologies of leaders, Sakal, when I teach foreign policy, we should not forget that national interests and objectives of a nation always work as the North Star for any and every leader from any ideology, any party, when that person takes the seat, takes the oath as the head of his or her nation. So whoever wins has a list of national priorities and objectives. And we have seen that when Biden also became the president, there were questions that, what will happen now when he will reverse the policies and so on, except certain policies related to climate change containment and pollution. Most of the policies, especially related to international relations, when it came to the issue of China, to Indo-Pacific and so on, policies remained, more or less same only. But having said that, when we compare Kamala and Trump, here now people know that how Trump remained the most peaceful leader, as in US did not engage in direct conflicts during his tenure. And apart from that, he is a businessman. So he could be looking at the economic priorities and betterment of the lives of people. So that is an edge right now for him.
Yeah, 2-3 months to go. Yeah, we'll see how this really pans out from here. But Zenia, before we wrap up, since you're a special guest from Ohio, now the focus also shifts, rather the conversations I'm sure are already happening, the backdoor talks and all of that, backroom talks. Who could be Kamala Harris's running mate? Who could be the next one she's going to pick? And now all eyes are also set in this convention in Chicago to officially confirm this. There's a build-up for that.
Yes, there's quite a build-up, right? And there are quite a few potential picks for the vice president. The inclination is primarily towards Pete Buttigieg, a candidate that I personally am, very fond of, and I think he represents the LGBTQ community, right? He supports a lot of the policies that I particularly supported when I voted for the Biden administration in the last election, right? I think Pete Buttigieg definitely emerges as a top pick for Kamala Harris, and especially if she wants to reach that broader voter base, especially if she wants to attract, Gen Z voters, that voter base between 18 to 35 that you're looking at, Gen Z millennial voters. So I think that having a candidate who can reach out to voters, that is representative of the diversity of the United States, right, would definitely help in terms of being the first LGBTQ community member to the
Zenia, right.
White House.
We would wait and watch till the Chicago convention takes place. We're not going to really jump any guns as of now, but thank you very much, Zenia, for joining us live from Ohio, and Anshuji, thank you so much as always. It's a pleasure talking to you, both of you. Thank you. And still to come on DT India News Hour. Coming up next, with only 2 days remaining until the Paris Olympics, everything is ready for the world's largest sporting event. And Typhoon Gaimi is intensifying as it approaches Taiwan, with 2 fatalities and more than 200 injuries reported.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
We simply throw things away when we're done using them, be it a cup, an old shirt, or a used battery. But we can do a lot better. Let's find out how.
I thought I can get a bunch of people together and we can just create this beautiful product while not being wasteful, while paying people.
You're watching DT India News Hour. I'm Sakal Bhatt. India's Minister for Railways, Ashwini Vaishnav, elaborated on the rail budget allocations as part of the union budget presented on Tuesday. In a press conference on Wednesday, Minister Vaishnav highlighted that in the budget for the year 2024-25, rupees 3,694 crores have been allocated to accelerate the development of rail infrastructure in the hilly state of Jammu and Kashmir.
साल जम्मू कश्मीर के जो प्रोजेक्ट कई वर्षों से चल रहा था, उसके लिए 3,694 करोड़ रुपीस का एलोकेशन हुआ है और नए प्रोजेक्ट्स को आगे बढ़ाने के लिए भी काम चल रहा है.
The Indian Council of Medical Research team visited the Nipah cell of Mancheri Medical College in India's southern Malappuram and Pandikad area, where a boy died due to Nipah. After visiting, the team held a meeting and expressed satisfaction in the steps taken by Kerala to prevent spread of the epidemic. Well, the Indian Parliament on Wednesday witnessed some stormy scenes with opposition India bloc MPs protesting against what they perceived as a discriminatory budget. This just a day after Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman presented the Union Budget 2024 in Indian Parliament. Dibendu Mondal of DD India has filed this report.
Both the houses of the Indian Parliament began at 11 a.m. on Wednesday. The lower house began with a question hour and 0 hour as per procedure. The budget presented by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman was taken up for discussion by both the houses of Parliament later in the day. From the ruling BJP, Biplab Kumar Deb, former Chief Minister and now Member of Parliament from Tripura, began the discussion on the Union Budget in the Lok Sabha. He highlighted the key aspects of the budget, which aims to focus on employment generation and skill development.
इस देश के जॉब की कमी नहीं है,
इस देश के स्किल का कमी है और स्किल डेवलपमेंट मिनिस्ट्री भी नरेंद्र भाई मोदी जी ने ही बनाया था। 2023-24 से लगभग 18.2% कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर इसमें ज्यादा है। जब कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर बढ़ाया जाता है, इसका मतलब इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर और जॉब अपॉर्चुनिटी बढ़ता है।
While the opposition continues to protest both inside and outside the parliament, alleging biasness by the government in respect to allocation of funds for some states, both the houses of parliament have dedicated 20 hours each for the debate and discussion on the union budget. Each political party will be allotted their time to speak on the budget in both the houses of the parliament. Today, from the opposition, Kumari Selja of the Congress party began the debate in the lower house, followed by Trinamool Congress. Parliament will continue till the 12th of August. Dibyendu Mondal's report for DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. It's time now for some sports news. And with just 2 days left for the Paris Olympics, the stage is set for the world's biggest sporting competition. About 10,500 athletes from more than 200 countries will be participating, with the opening ceremony scheduled to take place on July 26. India has sent an 117 athletes to Paris, which is their second largest contingent after Tokyo. And DD India's Narayan Singh is joining us live from Paris. Narayan, fill in as far as the buzz there is concerned in Paris. How are things shaping up? Paris is, seem to be all set for the grand ceremony.
Sakala, the Paris is ready to host the biggest show and the greatest sporting show on the planet, that is Olympics, and third time the Paris in their history will host the game. First time they hosted the coveted games in 1900, and after that in 1924 they hosted the game second time. Now exactly after 100 years Paris is hosting the coveted games in we can say that it's a big achievement for the city to hosting coveted events like Olympics thrice. And exactly 100 years ago, India sent a team of 7 members to the Paris, and now 100 years after, fast forward, there is a strong contingent of 117 athletes who will vie for glory here in Paris. And we can say that the city of Paris is almost ready, and the opening ceremony will take just along the Seine river. The river is behind me, and you can also see the Eiffel Tower. It will start from the Seine river, and the opening ceremony will cover a distance of 6 kilometers, and it will culminate near the Eiffel Tower. So it's different in many ways. First time the opening ceremony of any Olympics, and it's first time in the history, will not take place in the stadium. It will take place along the bank of a river. Here the athletes will do parades in boat. Their boats will be equipped with the camera.
Lovely.
And the fans and the sports enthusiasts will come here to witness this grand event.
Right, you're reporting live from the vantage point. That's Eiffel Tower of Paris behind you, along the banks of majestic Seine River, and that's going to be the central focus when the opening ceremony kicks off in Paris. Narayan, that's all we have time for. Thank you very much for joining us live from Paris. Typhoon Gaimi has taken Taiwan and Philippines under its grip, leaving residents trapped, intensifying seasonal monsoon. We have more.
An enhanced monsoon and Typhoon Gaimi put lives out of gear in several parts of Filipino capital and nearby provinces. Rescuers on Wednesday rushed to save trapped residents from their homes after torrential rains.
Everything got submerged, everything is destroyed. It reached the second floor of our house. All our things are ruined, everything got wet, nothing was saved. At least we are safe. That's all that is important, that we were able to evacuate immediately.
The storm did not make landfall in the Philippines, but intensified seasonal monsoon rains, causing landslides and flooding. Authorities were forced to shut schools, offices and cancel flights. They also declared a state of calamity in a region that is home to 13 million people. After hitting Philippines, Typhoon Gaimi moved towards Taiwan. Gearing up for arrival of the typhoon, authorities shut financial markets in Taiwan. The military went on a standby amid torrential rains. Flights were cancelled too. After making landfall in Taiwan, typhoon is likely to hit the southeastern Chinese province of Fujian late on Thursday afternoon. On Wednesday, severe flooding in China's central province of Gansu was witnessed as floodwaters damaged embankments and pedestrian bridges. Moving to East Africa, 2 landslides in southern Ethiopia, residents used shovels to dig through mounds in the hunt for victims. The death toll from 2 landslides in southern Ethiopia has jumped to 229. While floods have brought life to a standstill in parts of Asia, heat waves and wildfires too disrupted people's lives. In Russia, firefighters shared the view from inside Siberian wildfires as blaze has threatened the villages. 88 wildfires rage in Yakutia, totaling 760,000 hectares. In Spain, a recent heat wave brought temperatures hitting 40 degrees Celsius, reaching 43 degrees Celsius in Cordoba and other parts of Andalusia. As on Tuesday, at least 5 fires were burning in Andalusia. Devastating wildfire have spread across the western provinces of Alberta and British Columbia in Canada. Some 25,000 people were forced to evacuate the picturesque tourist town of Jasper and its surroundings in Canada's Rocky Mountains. Bureau Report, DD, India.
And as monsoon season continues back home here in India, several Indian states have witnessed rainfall. In Gujarat, authorities took preventive measures in view of the heavy rainfall in several districts, while Delhiites got some respite after rain showers this Wednesday morning. And that's all we have for you in this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. And we will be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Sakal Bhatt, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
गर फिरदौस बर्रुए ज़मी अस्त हमी अस्तो हमी अस्तो हमी अस्त Jammu and Kashmir, nature's finest works. A land of verdant valleys, pristine lakes, striking autumns, unforgettable majestic beauty. A place of unwavering devotion, wholehearted smiles, and warm hospitality. World famous for its exquisite artistry. Leader in diverse agricultural products.